Hello guys, Ryan Ho back with another video. Today let's talk about the best, ZiiGaat slash Kiwi Ears IEM, but do a comparison of all four of these at different price points. The Kiwi Ears Airoso is the cheapest one, but I think it's pretty much the best value of the bunch. It's a very good IEM, very technical, but for a good price. Moving up, we have the ZiiGaat Lush at $180. This one has, well, in its name, it's Lush, essentially meaning it's very easy to listen to. The treble isn't very forward. It's a nice smooth listening experience. And then going up even more extensive, we have the ZiiGaat Arcanis. This one is actually $400. And I feel like the difference between these cheaper ones and these more expensive one is that they have what I call branded drivers, but essentially they have these American Knowles drivers that are very detailed. You can definitely tell that they're a step up from the kind of BA drivers they use on the cheaper models, as well as the HBB Punch over here at $450. It's also a very good IEM. It also uses what they call electrostatic drivers or EST drivers in here as well, which are honestly very detailed, and they're honestly really nice to listen to as well. So these are definitely the most detailed on the table versus these are just, a little bit behind because of the different drivers they use. Now let's kind of go into more detail about these and see which one is the best. As always, I'll pick the one I like the most, but it might not necessarily be the one you like the most, and you'll see which one is the best. So the first one on the table is the Airoso at $130. This thing sounds amazing. It has a very balanced tuning. It's pretty Harman in kind of just the way it sounds, and I feel like if you're looking for an IEM that has a really good bass and a sub bass with honestly good mid-range that kind of pops out a little bit, and the treble is also very I guess you can hear all the detail without being overly forward, I would say, because I guess the Harman type of tuning makes the mid-ranges slightly behind the treble and the bass that are more emphasized and more exciting sounding on this one. But overall, this is pretty much what you expect for a very balanced tuning, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. The Airoso, I think, could potentially be one of the best tuned ones on this table. It's very I guess is pretty much what I like to hear, so the tuning wise this is very nice. The Airoso actually uses a nicer box than even the Kiwi Ears Punch. It uses their newer kind of leather type of pouch, which is really nice. It just looks a little bit more premium than the, I guess the mainly plastic or I guess soft cover type of one. And then this one also comes with a lot of tips, which is hilarious. The cheapest one comes with the most amount of tips as well. So I feel like this one really does take the bag for the best value because it gives you so much. And the actual shell itself has this nice metal faceplate right here that you can see. It's pretty nice, and then it's very lightweight because it has these 5 drivers. So it has 1 dynamic driver and then 4 BA drivers, and it gives it this kind of nice and detailed type of sound. And then this thing also has BA drivers in there, so it has 4 BAs and 1 dynamic driver, which is really nice. And then this nice metal kind of shell, and then this lightweight type of resin shell as well. This thing is very small, it fits in your ear, and it's very lightweight, so there's no issues with kind of fit for this one. But as you get kind of into these more bigger ones, you can definitely feel them a little bit more in your ear. But this one is, a little bit smaller and easier to manage. Moving on, we have the ZiiGaat Lush. This thing has this really cool kind of black, very, I guess, mature looking type of finish to it. I think it looks really nice. I like the shell design. It's very kind of, I guess, dark night-ish. And then the back itself is also the standard type of shell. It's very kind of easy, very comfortable. It only comes with 1 type of tip, and then it comes with these ZiiGaat. I guess it technically comes with 2 tips. There's always the phone tips that it also comes with, and this nice kind of carrying bag. It's a pretty standard setup from ZiiGaat. Now, the sound of this is more lush. It's actually probably the one I probably don't like the most, honestly, simply because I feel like this thing down low in the bass and the sub bass, I feel like the sub bass itself just doesn't really it kind of rolls off. Essentially, you don't hear as much of the sub bass as I would like to. I think the cheaper Airoso actually has better sub bass and bass in general than even the Lush, and it's a lot cheaper. So for that sense, the Lush didn't really kind of meet my expectations. But then I feel like this kind of IEM is just kind of boring to listen to because the treble itself is supposed to be more, I guess, lush, so it's a lot more smooth sounding. The treble doesn't really stand out. It's just honestly a little bit overly smooth for my taste. So it doesn't really sound natural either, but it's really easy to listen to if you want to chill for a very long time. But I feel like if it's designed to be lush, I expect it to have more bass, I guess, or a really good bass to kind of back it up, but it just doesn't really have that either. So the Lush is probably my last place pick because it's just very kind of boring, and it's not even like technically better or tuned better than the Airoso in my opinion. So yeah. The Lush itself has one dynamic driver and four BAs, just like the Airoso. So they're both the same kind of driver configuration, but I think the Airoso is just done a little bit better. Now we're moving on to the ZiiGaat Arcanis. This thing is honestly really, really nice. It has the most drivers. So this thing has 7 drivers, which has 2 dynamic drivers, and then it has 5 BA drivers. So this thing has a total of 7, which is pretty ridiculous. I think the dynamic drivers in this is definitely the best. When it comes to kind of the bass and the sub bass, the thing that stood out the most for this IEM is definitely the way the sub bass sounds like it's basically a dedicated subwoofer. So if you like a lot of EDM music, a lot of music that have a lot of sub bass, this thing really feels like they strapped on a subwoofer on it, and it sounds really, really detailed. It goes super, super low. And I think that is probably the most fantastic part about this IEM. And also the mid bass is also really good, very well controlled. Everything is, I guess you get this kind of boosted bass sound without having it to be like losing any quality. It's probably the highest quality bass you're going to get on all these IEMs. But beyond that, I feel like the mid-range and the treble also do really well. But I feel like the ZiiGaat IEMs in general, I feel like they don't really like to emphasize, I guess, the treble as much, especially like the upper treble on this IEM. So you're not going to get a lot of those like air frequencies. It's a lot more kind of relaxed and chill up there. And, that's something I do kind of enjoy a little bit more. That's something like the HBB Punch that has a little bit more of, and stuff like the Airoso also just has a little bit more treble emphasis that I kind of like. That gives it a little extra detail, but for some people it might be, I guess, too much. So they like something a little bit more chill like the Arcanis. Now, Arcanis itself has, I would say, really good bass, really good mid-range, and then the treble it has a little bit better, I guess, lower treble, but the treble in general is just slightly more relaxed on this IEM, giving it a little bit more of a chill type of, I guess, tone as well. But honestly, it's very, very detailed. I really liked it. But I would say I would put it second place actually to the Punch. It does some things better than the Punch, like the sub bass and the bass I think is actually better on the Arcanis. But I think from the mid-range to the treble, I feel like the Punch does better. But anyways, the actual comfort of this is, I would say, the biggest one. When I put this in my ear, like, this thing has 7 drivers. They got to go somewhere in here, and it definitely feels a little bit bigger and chunkier in my ear. So you can definitely kind of feel that. Now, moving on to the Punch, I think this is the best one on the table. It does sound the best. Well, I do have one, I guess, complaint, or one thing that it's kind of up to people's preferences, but it's the bass. So like it's in the name, it's HBB. This guy likes a lot of bass, and this thing definitely has a lot of bass. It's definitely like bass head level bass. Like, you're definitely getting a super emphasized amount of bass. That's more than anything on this table, which is fun if you really like it, but it could slightly be kind of taking over the sound. Essentially just a lot of bass and takes over the music, and it's not the most, I guess, accurate level of bass, but it's definitely very fun to listen to. And this one actually has its own unique cable as well. It's not the standard black. It has a thicker cable. It is a little bit thicker of a cable, but the cable itself is really nice. It's very different from, I guess, the other ones. You don't get the same standard type of cable, and it's kind of nice to see that it has a little bit more, I guess, uniqueness about it. Overall, the fit is also pretty ergonomic on here. It is a little bit bigger feeling than the other ones, but this also just has 5 drivers as well. But the drivers it's using is a dynamic driver, and then it has 2 Knowles drivers, which are much more detailed, I think, than the cheaper models over here. And I think they're on par with the Arcanis. But then it also has these EST drivers that play like the treble that sound honestly really detailed. I feel like it does, at least to me, seem like it gives it a little bit of an advantage. I think most of the advantage is just in terms of the tuning. I think it just has just a more, I guess, complete treble experience than the Arcanis, and that's why I kind of enjoy it more as well. But overall, if I had to kind of capture the sound, this is kind of very bassy, vocal forward type of sound. I feel like the bass itself is very emphasized. It's too much for me slightly, but I still prefer it overall. as like a whole package than the Arcanis. And then when it comes to kind of the mid-range and treble, I feel like it's super, super well tuned, super detailed. Like if you listen to any song on this that doesn't have any bass, you can hear exactly how well it performs. Honestly, it's one of the most detailed IEMs I've heard for the mid-range and the treble. It's also tuned very well, exactly how I like it. I like my kind of vocals forward, very present, and it does that super, super, super well, as well as giving me that very detailed experience. I think this thing also, like, I feel like not only this one, but also the Arcanis, also they seem to have much better separation of the sound, much better detail. I would even say the sound stage is also better on these two IEMs compared to the Airoso and the Lush. But I would say, like, if you're playing like competitive games and stuff and you're trying to like track your enemies and find the positioning, I also found all of them to be pretty similar. And I do want to make a note that, like, if you're actually trying to play competitive games, I feel like if you're wearing the smallest tip, I always find the smallest tips to actually be the ones that perform the best. So like these smaller tips, I feel like they get into your ear a little bit more, and because of that, it fits better and you get, I guess, better positional accuracy, honestly, with smaller tips. That's what I found. But for me, like, sometimes the more medium-sized tips sound better to me personally. So, but it's definitely worth noting that if you want the best imaging, I would try smaller tips in general because it seems to always be better. All the imaging is pretty similar amongst them if you're using small tips, but I feel like the different, I guess, sound, different tones that they give off make others better than, I guess, the other ones. I would say the Punch has a really good tuning, but then the bass is very emphasized, and that could get kind of in, I guess, make your mix a little hard to hear when all the bass notes are just really prominent, versus something like the Airoso, I feel like is probably the ideal IEM. It has the best type of tuning in the sense of like the bass and the treble are emphasized, but it's not overdone like it is kind of in the Punch. But the treble emphasis also helps you kind of, you know, hear all the sounds, the gunshots, especially they stand out a little bit better on the Airoso in comparison to something like the Lush or the Arcanis. So I feel like the Airoso is probably the best one just because of the tuning. And honestly, the price point is also really nice because it's $130, so it's the cheapest one, and it has very good tuning. So if you want to play competitive games, I'd probably pick that one. I would probably pick the Punch if you don't mind the bass being emphasized. Honestly, that would probably be my first pick. But of course, that bass being so emphasized in like a competitive setting might not be as fun, but something in like, you know, a story setting, like you're playing like Monster Hunter or story mode games, then I feel like the additional Punch just adds to a more fun environment. So the Punch could also be a good choice. But yeah, I mean, overall, I definitely recommend the Punch. I think it has this nice, unique kind of his logo. It looks really nice. Overall, I think it is the best sounding IEM on this table. So it kind of leads me to this kind of, I guess, ZiiGaat versus Kiwi Ears. Which one is better? I mean, personally, I feel like the ZiiGaat tuning is a little bit more chill, a little bit more relaxed in the treble. But in doing so, it is less, I guess, natural sounding to me, less accurate sounding. I feel like the Kiwi Ears leans a little bit more towards, I guess, Harman type of tuning or a little bit more natural type of sound. So I do feel like I prefer the Kiwi Ears more than the ZiiGaat in this case. So for me, like I said, I think the Punch is really good. If you want something a little cheaper, you don't want to spend as much, then I would say you can go with the Airoso. But for sure, the technical performance of the ZiiGaat and the bass on this thing is really good. I think the sub bass on this thing is something I honestly think is definitely special on the Arcanis. And then the Lush, honestly, the Lush is kind of boring to me. I feel like it's just not the best one on this table. It kind of lacks behind the rest of these three. So there's not really much nice things to say about it, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's how they all stack up. Let me know if that was helpful, and please like and subscribe down below. Help my videos out. And then I'll also leave links to Linsoul down below if you want to pick up any of these products. And if you guys do pick it up from there, it does help support my channel. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.